Well, thank you for joining us today for Age Well with a Sharper Brain. I am Joan Benz. I'm the program coordinator for Sharp Again. And I would just like to note that the information in this presentation is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please see a licensed and qualified medical professional for your medical needs. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat box and we will answer them during the Q&A at the end of the presentation. Now I'd like to welcome and introduce our speakers, Steve Ledvina and Myra Oney. Steve is a national board certified health and wellness coach. He's the founder of knowingalz.com and Sharp Again board chair, excuse me. Myra is a certified holistic health coach, certified brain longevity specialist, and a Reiki master teacher. Both Myra and Steve are coaches for our foundational coaching group programs. Thank you, Myra and Steve, for joining us today.
Joan?
Thank you, Joan.
So we'll just get started here with a little bit about Sharp Again before we jump into everything else. So Sharp Again, who are we? Our mission is to educate, empower, and support everyone to take an active role in optimizing their cognitive health using a scientifically based multi-therapeutic approach. So we want everybody to be looking forward, working to prevent dementia, and to optimize their cognitive health so that for as long as possible, you can have the healthy brain you want. And we envision a world where dementia can be prevented, treated, and reversed, and where everyone has the ability to remain cognitively healthy throughout their lives. If you have any questions about Sharp Again, feel free to put those in the chat now, or we can answer them at the end. What is this all about today? So we're going to start by talking a little bit about what the difference between normal aging and cognitive decline is. That is helpful to just get an understanding. It's often an area of doubt for people of, is this kind of thing I'm feeling, is that normal aging, or is this something I should be worried about? We're going to talk about what we can do now to stay sharp. What are the root causes of memory loss? Those two pieces are going to be hand in hand. And most importantly, we really want everybody to leave here with one or more action steps. The information is super valuable, but if everybody left here with one action that they were going to do and you forgot almost everything else that we said, I would feel wonderful about that outcome. So to jump into it, dementia is not normal aging. So what is the difference? So normal cognition is, unsurprisingly, no detectable changes in cognition through testing by yourself or the patient or your loved one or by the family. So you're not really you might be noticing a little bit of something, but it's not significant. It's not showing up on a test, and your family members aren't noticing it. It can be a fine line between normal cognition and the next level, subjective cognitive impairment, which is where brain changes occur without measurable symptoms on a test, but you can feel something isn't right. But maybe the doctor or your family isn't able to detect it. It's not going to show up on a test. It's not going to show up for you. I will comment as well, something that I encounter a lot with my clients, which is people who have particularly high cognitive performance will notice this, especially, and your symptoms might not show up on a test for a while compared to maybe broader members of the population. So if you're normally scoring really high on a test, you can score a little lower and still be above the threshold that would have the symptoms show up on a test. So that's subjective cognitive impairment. Mild cognitive impairment is when the cognitive changes are becoming a concern for yourself as an individual, or maybe your family's noticing some daily activities are becoming a little more difficult, and this would be detectable on a test. So what is the difference between sort of that normal cognition and then the subjective cognitive impairment and mild cognitive impairment categories. And really just to zoom out a little bit, the reason we drill down onto both the categories of subjective and mild cognitive impairment is just to let you know there is a stage of this where you noticed something is wrong, but maybe nobody else has yet. And that's an alarm bell that you can take seriously. You don't have to just rely on the test. So normal aging is everything like simple forgetfulness, a delay or slowing in recalling names, dates, events. You might have some trouble finding words in a conversation, slowing in the speed of processing information, slower learning or problem solving, challenges with multitasking. All of that can really be considered normal. Our memory processing begins to slow down as early as age 30. So when it's not normal aging is regularly forgetting appointments or conversations, regularly misplacing items, trouble focusing, often forgetting names of family members or friends, struggling to complete tasks you are used to doing, such as like shopping or driving or doing your accounting, memory problems that interfere with any of those daily and life activities. So simple for forgetfulness, we all forget names, sometimes dates. We all kind of lose that word every now and then. If it becomes a consistent part of life, if it becomes regular, if it's kind of disrupting your ability to communicate with your friends or family, that's when we want to start paying more attention. Beyond that, dementia, where it kind of moves into what we call dementia, is when the cognitive impairment is severe enough to interfere with everyday activities, everyday abilities. It's when it moves from mild cognitive impairment to dementia. So what is our goal? Our goal is going to be to stop, delay, or prevent that cognitive decline. So if we can think of normal aging being that slow decline starting at age 30, then that subjective cognitive impairment, or what's also called preclinical, is when it starts to speed up. There's a little more significant, a little more noticeable decline. The mild cognitive impairment, even greater. Dementia, a little bit greater. Our goal is to prevent the cognitive decline by delaying, stopping, or slowing. So no matter where you are, we want to delay this by kind of flattening out the decline or moving back to the normal aging cognition. And so today we're going to talk about a few steps to get started with that delay or prevention.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So, it used to be that if someone went to their doctor, their neurologist, and they were tested, and the neurologist said, I'm really sorry, but you are showing signs of dementia or Alzheimer's, that people would shut down from that, right? Understandably, you would be upset. You would tend to go inward. You would want to deny it. You would want to say, no, this isn't happening. This isn't true. And the real shift now has been that we actually know that there is hope. And that there is hope that if you are showing signs and symptoms of dementia, that there is something you can do about it. Now, we are living longer, and we are focusing on prevention, which is really what we do here at Sharp Again. And the word that we're trying to get out is that you can prevent or slow or sometimes even reverse the progression of memory loss, depending on the cause of it. We know a lot of the causes of it now. And switching to a prevention mindset can be very, very, very helpful. And even if you do have a diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment, it is possible. It is possible through investigation, through lifestyle changes, to minimize the impact of it. Okay, Steve. So what I would like you to do is this sheet of paper that Joan was talking about. Go ahead and get that out now, whether it's something that you printed out or whether it's just a piece of paper and something to write with. As we go through the rest of the webinar, we're going to be talking about specific things that you can do to help your brain health. And what I'd like you to do is just take a moment when you hear something, write it down and say, well, that's something that I could consider. That's a change that I could consider making that would really help me. And it could be something that you've heard before and something that you've tried before, but you might say, wow, I didn't realize that's something that could affect my brain health. Just make a note of it here so that you can go back to it. We're going to look at this sheet later on, but also just so that after the webinar, you can remind yourself of what you learned and some things that you might start thinking about.
Well, so what are the lifestyle factors that prevent brain health or that affect brain health? You can think of these both as kind of risk factors, where if you're not getting them, that lack of sleep, for example, might be contributing to some cognitive decline, and like things that can help prevent. So if we're getting that good sleep, it's going to increase our brain health and help give us a more robust brain against other root causes of cognitive decline and memory loss. So first one, sleep is 7 to 9 hours of night. We really want to get that 7 to 9 hours every single night consistently. Nutrition is going to look like a vegetable heavy Mediterranean style diet. And don't worry, we're going to dive into each of these a little bit more later. This is kind of the preview of each of these topics. Exercise is a combination of kind of that aerobic, get your heart up, exercise, weight training, building muscle, and then stability and flexibility training for about 3 hours or 180 minutes a week at minimum. Mental activity, keeping our brains sharp, learning new skills, hobbies, brain training. We just want to be pushing our brain to make new connections, keeping old connections alive consistently, no matter what age we are. Stress, chronic stress is a big contributor to brain health. And I know that we live in sort of stressful lives, stressful times. And so things like meditation, stress management techniques can be really helpful. We often talk about stress in 2 different categories: the things stressors you might be able to remove, and then the ones you can't. So let's remove the ones we can, and then learn how to manage the stress from the stressors we can't. And then finally, staying socially active. The more we can stay active with a robust community, the better off our brain is going to be. A lot of our brain is dedicated towards those social activities. So, recognizing what people are saying, what are their emotions, all these different pieces of social interaction are part of keeping our brain active and just living a good life. Beyond those 6 causes, which are what we're going to focus on today, there's other preventable causes. I'll be listing a few webinars at the end. We covered these topics and those 6 in depth with experts throughout the year in our guest webinars. And so those are going to be toxins in food, water, and air, both at home and at work, really anywhere where you're spending a lot of time. Hormonal imbalances, things like the thyroid or sex hormones and others, insulin being one, have an effect on our brain health. Inflammation from many of the other causes, but also from low-level infections, things like mold, other sources. Heavy metal toxicity, if you're getting exposed to mercury, lead, other metals, that toxicity has a significant impact on our brain health and functioning. Both physical and emotional trauma. So physical trauma, things like concussions, emotional trauma from like life events, that sort of thing. And then medication effects. So this is one where we always want to say, don't ever change your medications without speaking with your doctor. But if you are experiencing some cognitive symptoms, that it might be worth having a discussion with your doctor if that could be coming from any of your prescriptions as a side effect of one of those medications. All right.
Okay, so now we're going to dive into some of these lifestyle factors that are things that you can actually do something about. Okay, you don't need to see a doctor, you don't need to be tested. You just know that there are places for improvement. So the first thing we're going to talk about is nutrition, because nutrition is really the foundation of our health. Okay, the nutrition, what you eat, provides your energy. It provides your ability to think, to move. What you eat is probably the thing that you have the most control over and can make the biggest impact with. And I just wanted to say that as we're going through this, these topics can all be very, very deep. They have multiple levels to them. We're just doing sort of a high level overview and trying to give you an idea or a cue about something that you might take and do when you leave here. And also, I just wanted to say that in our small group programs, we dive into these much more deeply, and we give you a chance to really go to work on whatever goals you have. Anyway, so the first thing we're going to talk about is eating whole unprocessed food. So ultra-processed foods, whoa, big topic these days. I am not, every time I open my email, my browser, I see something about ultra-processed foods because they have now come into the public eye. I just want to talk for a minute, once again, in a capsulated form. What is an ultra-processed food? Well, basically, it's anything that is not in its original container, which means like banana, the tomato, those all come in their original container. Now, obviously, you are going to be looking at some packaged and canned foods. What you want to do to really help yourself understand ultra-processed foods and how they might be in your diet is to learn how to read the label on a box or a can. Because if there's anything on that label that you would not find in your kitchen, then most likely it is an ultra-processed food and you want to find a different example. And even things that seem healthy, like Annie's mac and cheese, no, that's an ultra-processed food. So those are the kinds of foods that you want to start avoiding. The foods that you really want to focus on are whole unprocessed foods, like fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, fresh meats. They can also be frozen, but those are the kinds of things that you really want to focus on. And why is it important to your brain health? Well, good foods, of course, give you energy. They give you the energy. They help with cell growth. And your ultra-processed foods tend to create inflammation in your body. That's really kind of the overview of that, which is why you don't want to use ultra-processed foods, because that can cause high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all of these things, and Alzheimer's and dementia, because we have to remember that our brain actually is an organ in our body, right? Sometimes we tend to forget that. So eating whole, unprocessed foods is really important. It may mean that you need to cook more. If you don't like to cook, then one of the things you can do is start looking. A lot of grocery stores now have sections where you can purchase meals that are fresh made in the grocery store. So that could be a good alternative if once again, you need to check the ingredients, but if you're not a cook, then that could be an option. The second thing is to hydrate. So we're 90% water. Okay, water is essential for delivering the nutrients to every organ of your body, including your brain, but it also helps to remove toxins. So if you're not drinking enough water, what's happening is you're getting a toxic buildup, and that toxic buildup also creates inflammation. And a general rule of thumb, if you don't have kidney or heart issues or anything else that helps retain water, is if you want to get sort of a ballpark idea about how much water you should be drinking, take your weight, divide it in half, and that's the number of ounces that you should try to drink every day. And it needs to be water or herbal tea, or water with like a squeeze of lemon or lime in it. Those are no soft drinks, please, no soft drinks or fruit juices. They are high in sugar, and the sodas are very high in chemicals. So hydrate. Fast for 12 hours overnight. So this is interesting. And although it's not really new thinking anymore, a lot of people still are not sure what this is about. So when you eat, obviously your body digests, and that takes a lot of energy. When you fast, it gives your body, it gives your digestion, your gut microbiome a chance to rest and recover, and to take that energy, especially overnight, to take that energy and let your brain use it to detoxify and renew, because that's what your brain does when you sleep, which Steve is going to talk about in a minute. So fasting overnight would really be pretty simple. You stop eating, let's say you stop eating dinner at 7 o'clock. You don't eat breakfast again the next morning until 7 in the morning. So it's 7 to 7. The people who have the most issue with this are people who like to snack at night before they go to bed. Now, for some people, this might be appropriate, especially if you have certain blood sugar issues. But for most of us, we don't really need that snack. It's a habit. So if you are in a snacking habit, it would be a question of learning how to break that habit, or perhaps looking at what you eat for dinner and make sure that what you're eating is high in nutrition. Because if your body, if your meals are nutrient dense, then you are not going to be hungry. Okay, Steve.
Just a couple of thoughts that came to my mind on the 12-hour fast. A lot of people often talk, water obviously is great during the fast. Some people ask if caffeine and things like coffee, tea, anything that's not food, it is good. You can do during the fast, but as soon as it has like sugars and things, coffee and caffeine will stop some of the benefits of the fast. You're still digesting some things, so it's really up to you. But a lot of the benefits are just that gut rest, not getting sugar overnight, all of those sorts of things. So start in a place that's approachable for you. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah, you really should. If you're just starting it, don't think you have to do it every night. But just start small. Start by doing it one night, and then maybe 2 nights, and then you can build from there. Especially if you're accustomed to snacking. Many people will feel benefits right away when they start doing this 12-hour fast.
Yeah. And the 12-hour fast, as Myra kind of previewed, moves nicely into getting that 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So having that, rest, you're not going to have a sugar spike in the middle of the night. You're not going to be consuming alcohol, caffeine, those sorts of things right before bed. So that's 7 to 8 hours or 7 to 9 hours is really, really important. Poor sleep reduces the ability to clear toxins and plaque from the brain. It is the part of our daily cycle where we, take memories from the short-term storage, put them into long-term storage, where we prune away kind of memories that we don't need anymore. You might think of, what, I want all my memories, but you don't really need to know what you had for lunch 5 Tuesdays ago. At some point, your brain says, we don't need that information. We're never going to use it again. Great, don't store it. Let's make room and concentrate on the important stuff. So sleep, extremely important. A few words on, what you can do to have a good sleep environment. One, I'll just plug, we have a really great recent webinar that is a full hour all on sleep. I think sleep is incredibly important. I think we don't focus on it enough, but the long and short of it is, as consistent of a routine as you can possibly have. Our daily cycle of sleep and wake, you maybe have heard the term circadian rhythm, really reinforcing that as much as possible is very helpful to promoting higher sleep quality. It's going to help you get to bed on time. Doing things like exercising throughout the day, but not right before bed, helps promote sleep. Abstaining from alcohol in the several hours leading up to sleep, as alcohol disrupts sleep. Same thing with caffeine for an even longer period. Caffeine has about a quarter life, they say, of 12 hours. So if you have 2 cups of coffee at noon, you still have half a cup of coffee in your system at midnight. So that caffeine can make it harder to sleep. A calm pre-bedtime routine, a calm bedroom environment where you're not doing stressful work, watching a stressful show, news, that sort of thing. You want to be kind of sending your body down into a calmer sleep state. There's 1,000 other little tips, and I totally recommend watching one of those webinars if you're interested in that. I mentioned exercise as a part of sleep. Exercise is also a super valuable thing for all, for many, many reasons. Sort of one of the taglines you'll hear most brain health doctors talk about, and even broader health, general health doctors, is that exercise is the closest thing to that sort of magic super pill that we're ever going to get. Regular exercise promotes a strong flow of oxygen and blood to support, the formation of new brain cells, and it can actually improve memory. That having a strong cardiovascular aerobic exercise, so anything that gets your heart rate up, running, walking briskly, swimming, biking, people often ask about pickleball. If you're active enough and you're hustling around and your heart rate's up, anything where you're kind of out of breath a little bit counts as that. That is going to mitigate all of the cardiovascular issues. It's going to create better vascular health, so your blood cells in your brain are going to be better, and that cardiovascular health and brain, blood, vascular health is a huge risk factor for dementia, for cognitive decline. Beyond that, lifting weights, doing any form of resistance training, building up that muscle has a number of valuable brain health properties. Stability and flexibility as well, that brain-body connection. It's also important to note that those types of exercise help mitigate falls. So if you think you might be at fall risk, training up that stability and flexibility is really valuable, because falls can be one of the points where if you fall and you break your leg, or you hurt your knee, or you break a hip, that can create kind of a cascade of difficulties for your brain health, because all of a sudden it's harder to sleep well, it's harder to eat well, it's harder to socialize. And so doing everything we can to mitigate that fall risk by having confidence in our stability and flexibility is really a valuable thing. And then third, challenge your brain. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but the brain develops neural connections when we learn new information and are engaged. Doing things like learning a language or an instrument or problem solving, do that stimulating to create those new connections. People ask, well, does this count? Does learning this new game, or reactivating an old hobby count for brain stimulation? I like to just set the rule of, if exercise, aerobic exercise, is anything that puts you out of breath, there's that feeling in your brain when you're learning something new. It's a little bit hard, you're kind of struggling with it a little bit. It's taking a lot of your energy. Maybe you feel a little bit drained afterwards. If you're getting that feeling, then you're really challenging your brain. We don't want to be doing something that feels like impossible or futile, but something that just stresses your brain just a little bit. And that could be, picking up an instrument that you set down a few years ago or a few decades ago, learning a language that you've never spoken before, or that you learned when you were younger and it would be fun to revisit. So anything that challenges your brain, feels new, kind of creates that need to push through a little bit of brain resistance, is good enough to challenge your brain.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that there is some new research that if you have an activity that combines a mental challenge with a physical challenge, that this actually is probably the most effective thing you can do. So it can be anything from playing the piano, right, or an instrument when you are not just thinking about what you're doing, but you're also actively moving. I would think pickleball would probably fall into that. And there are also games that you can get now that they're like dots that light up, and they light up sort of not in a random order, and you have to go and step on the dot when it lights up. And this is actually a mental and a a mental and a physical stimulation as well. And those types of activities are supposed to be really quite helpful.
Just to
Yeah.
that for a sec, I love that you mentioned that, because I think listing all these things can sometimes feel a little overwhelming. And so being able to find the overlaps between the things, where pickleball is a great example. It's a mental challenge. You're socializing with which Myra's about to talk about. You're getting a mental challenge. You're exercising. It's, those places where you're doing 2 or 3 of these things. If you're going to exercise, do it with friends. If you're going to learn an instrument, maybe find a buddy who would be interested in meeting up every now and then to do that. It can be additive almost anywhere to be doing more than one of these things together.
Yep, and that is, boy, I almost don't need to talk about this, because that's pretty much what we're talking about here, is the importance of socializing. One of the things that the pandemic taught us was how vital it is, how devastating isolation can be on people's health, and especially their mental health and their cognitive function. People who were really isolated during the pandemic, people did very poorly if they didn't have people who they could talk to. Especially, it's one of the things that you want to look for is, do you have at least 2 people who you can talk to on the phone, or you can talk to regularly, who you can, you feel that you can be very open and honest with. We are all social beings, and we're all tribal beings. We are, back in prehistoric times, if you weren't part of your tribe, you might get left behind when they moved on. And this sort of instinct is still with us. We need to be with people. And it doesn't mean that if you're an introvert and you don't like to be with people, that's okay. It doesn't mean that, socializing doesn't mean you have to go out to some big social function all the time. But it does mean that you are comfortable in who you are and in the socialization that you do have. Isolation is really a feeling of not being connected. And that's really the key, is feeling disconnected from friends, from family, from society in general, is when lack of socialization can really be detrimental. So as Steve was saying, there are so many ways to combine socialization with these other things. Take a walk with friends, take a cooking class with friends or with a group. Consider joining a faith group or a book group, in some way to reach out and connect with other people. And also, many times when people really start to socialize, especially in groups, because one of the big things that you can do, of course, is volunteer for an organization that you feel very connected to, is that many times when people begin to socialize, they begin to find a purpose in life. And finding a purpose in life is very strongly connected to longevity, and to really your wellness quotient. Okay, how well you stay, how long you stay well throughout your life, and sense of purpose, and having a group of friends can be very helpful. And if any of you are familiar with the Blue Zone studies, in the Blue Zone studies, they studied people who were the longest lived people on Earth in, I think, 6 different cultures. They were all varied. They had, they lived in different places. Some were rural, some were in cities, they had different types of diets. The one thing they all had in common was socialization. They were all very much a part of their community. So think about how you socialize, and are you satisfied with that? Or is there something more that you might want to consider doing? Some of these suggestions we've made, that could help up your social life and just basically bring more joy and satisfaction to your day-to-day living. Okay, manage stress. So stress is, once again, this is huge. Chronic stress actually contributes through various various biochemical reactions, actually contributes to inflammation. And we've talked about inflammation and how that can impact your health and your brain. So really what we want to talk a little bit about is, how do you manage stress? You might want to make a note about what do you do to manage stress? And some of the things you can do, well, you can socialize, you can exercise. Exercise is very, very effective in managing stress. Take a walk in nature is a great way to manage stress. And obviously, there are things like learning how to meditate, taking a yoga class, listening to music, talking to a friend, anything that you can do to help get your body back into balance. Okay, because when we're stressed, you clinch up, your blood pressure goes up, your heart rate goes up, your brain starts going around like this. So what can you do to ease that? Give yourself a greater sense of ease and greater clarity. Breath work is also very, very, very effective for managing stress. And in our small group programs, we always start out with doing some breath work because we understand how important that is. So, question, how do you manage stress? One of the big things about everything that we've been talking about is it's never too late to start. So if you have seen something that we've been talking about today, or even if it's something that we reminded you of, it's really important not to delay making these lifestyle changes. Because to be very honest with you, lifestyle changes take they take a while to really for you to really start seeing the benefits of it. And many people think that we're talking about Alzheimer's and dementia, that's a subject for older people. Okay, you don't need to worry about that until you're in your 60s or 70s. But the truth is that, as Steve was saying, we start losing our memory capacities when we're in our 30s. So really, the time to begin making lifestyle changes is, kids. Okay, you don't think about it, but your children, your grandchildren, the earlier that they can start making these lifestyle changes, the less wear and tear there is on the body, and the less chances there are that these things will become health problems for them. But once again, it's never too late to start. If you found something we've been talking about today, we're going to look at that in just a minute. It's never too late. But a good time to start is today. A better time to start was yesterday, right? Okay. And the last thing is, right. So when you are making lifestyle changes, you're changing habits, you want to create a sustainable change. One of the ways that you do that is by making, first of all, very small changes, right? You make things in very small increments, not something so overwhelming that you shut down and say, well, I can't do that, or it didn't work. But you need a system, and you also need support. Study after study has shown how important it is to have support when you are making these changes, whether that support is from a partner, a friend, or from a group. The groups are highly effective in helping people make changes. And why is that? Well, it's because you have to stay accountable to somebody, not just yourself. And you also have someone who you can bounce your ideas off of, or bounce your concerns off of. But yes, study after study has shown that it's extremely important. Making lifestyle changes is hard. It's hard to do. And the more supportive you are and the more accountability you have, better chance that you will be able to create a sustainable change. Okay. Oh, here we go. All right. So if you printed this out, that's great. If you didn't, then you can just take your sheet of paper and make a couple of columns. And we're going to go through this. This is an exercise that we're going to do. When Steve said at the beginning that we're really committed to having you walk away with something that will be helpful to you today, a change you can make today. Of course, it's up to you to do this, but our goal is to give you the information and the tools so that when you walk away from this webinar, you can start implementing in action right away. And this is the kind of work that we do on our small group programs. So the first thing you're going to do is take a look at that sheet of paper that you started writing down on, changes that you thought you should make or you can make. and pick one of them and choose a goal. Now, this goal doesn't have to be something that you're going to, that's going to happen in a month. You can choose a 1-year goal or a 6-month goal. And it's actually pretty important that you are specific about the parameters that this goal is going to fall within. So let's say, because you want to make the goal specific and realistic. So if you say, my goal is to lose weight, well, that's not specific. And that's, you're going to go nowhere with that. If you say, I want to lose 10 pounds in 3 months, well, that's specific and it's realistic. So that's the kind of goal that I would like you to look at, something that is specific and that is time bound. So go ahead and write down on your sheet what your goal is and make it time bound, okay? Within what period of time would you like to accomplish this goal? So the next thing we're going to look at, now that you have a goal that is specific and realistic, it's important that you find 3 doable action steps that you can take to make that goal a reality. So what does that mean? So let's say that you made your goal. I just use weight loss because it's pretty simple and we all understand it. Let's say that your goal was, I want to lose 10 pounds in the next 3 months. So great. What do you have to do in order to achieve that? What are 3 doable things that you can do to make that goal a reality? Can you start can you start an exercise program? And when I say exercise program, it might be that you don't do anything, but you're going to start walking for 20 minutes, 3 days a week. Okay, that is specific. It's specific. You're going to walk 20 minutes, 3 days a week, and you're going to track that so you keep yourself accountable. Let's say that another thing you're going to do is, let's say like you have a bagel and cream cheese for breakfast every morning. What can you do to make that a healthier breakfast that is lower in fats and carbohydrates? What might that be? Might that be a couple of poached eggs and a piece of whole grain toast? Might that be I don't know, some oatmeal and fruit? What can you do? And if you're going, well, find something that would taste good for you, that would help you. And also, once again, you don't have to cut out your bagel and cream cheese right away, but maybe you cut that down to twice a week instead of every day. And then your third goal, what might your third goal be for losing weight? Maybe you start cooking a healthier meal. Maybe you start doing the 12-hour fast. People do lose weight doing the 12-hour overnight fast. So go ahead and write down your 3 action steps. And when you are ready, I would love if someone would like to share their goal and or their action steps. Really, really, really love to hear what you come up with. You can just put it in the chat.
So one other thing to consider when we're talking about these goal creations, action steps, and Myra talked about it a lot, but think about some medium-term goal, like a 3-month goal, where it's long enough in the future that you can make some change and then backing down for that. But another useful piece is to think, a year into the future or 3 years into the future. Where do I want to be? Long enough time frame where a lot of changes are possible. It can seem a little intimidating to think, oh, I want to do all these things and I want to do them now. The reality is it takes time to make those changes. And so thinking about them on that longer time scale of, okay, a year from now, I would feel great if I was, sleeping consistently, exercising consistently, creating that vision that's a little farther out and giving yourself the year to do what is a big project or a big change can take a little bit of that individual pressure off. Oh, excellent. Thanks, Anne.
So I see that Anne says that her goal is to get on the exercise bike 3 times a week and to pick TV shows to watch while doing it. Let's see, it has been a decoration, which is not, it's been a decoration, which is not its purpose. Yeah, exercise bikes tend to get like that. But that's a great goal, Anne. And Jim has a question, is a 13 or 14-hour fast material more effective than 12 hours? Research says yes. Research says the longer you fast, the better it is. We start with a 12-hour fast because that seems to be the most doable for people. But yes, it is more effective. Anyone else have something they would like to share? Okay. Well, I just wanted to talk for a minute. First of all, thank you for doing that exercise. I hope that you got something out of it and that you take it and share it with someone. Okay, don't just leave it sitting on this piece of paper. If you have some intention, if you have a real intention to help your brain health, then take those goals take this work that you did today and share it with someone who can help keep you accountable to actually making this happen for you. This is the hardest part. Okay, it's easy to sit and listen to a webinar. It's easy to fill out a form, but the real thing that will make a difference to you is to take that step to actually put it into action. And that's why we wanted to tell you about our foundational coaching programs, because that's the goal of this program, is to help you take all of this theory, all of this information, and really put it into action, because information is information, all right? Doesn't do anything for you unless you actually put it into motion. So we have a program that's beginning on January 28th, which is a Tuesday. It runs Tuesdays from 10:30 to 11:15 Eastern Time for 6 weeks. The deadline to register is this coming Monday, January 13th. So these programs, we have 6 one-on-one group coaching sessions that are consecutive. So 6 group coaching programs. And the programs are limited to 6 people in each session and a coach, professionally trained coach. I happen to be doing this session. It also includes 2 one-on-one coaching sessions with your coach. And these one-on-one sessions start, they are before the group coaching sessions start and also at the end, so that we can get to know you and your concerns and who you are prior to the group session starting. And then at the end, we can really review what you've learned and where you want to go from there to keep your healthy new habits on track. It includes educational videos and online resources. So we do provide you with the education pieces, but really it's all about the coaching. It's all about making sure that you understand, we teach you a goal setting method, and then we support you in reaching whatever goal or goals it is that you have decided on, and also make sure that you have the tools to push that into the future, okay, that you can keep going with it and even add new goals and say, I know how to do this and I know I can be successful at it. So we focus on the 4 areas we talked about today: nutrition, exercise, stress, and sleep, because these are places where you can begin to make changes yourself. Okay. Where you don't need to see a doctor or be tested or anything else. You can make these changes. The cost of the program is only $99. It has a value of $450. So really, it is a tremendous value. And I think we have 2 spots left in this program. We also have the sessions for the entire year are on our website. So if this doesn't work for you, but you're interested in joining another group, then please take a look. I think the registration is open for all of them. So that is, I hope that we see you there. I think Joan will be dropping when she sends her email, she'll be including a link to the program in case it's something you're interested in looking into and registering for. And we would so much love to see you there. We do have people who repeat this program because, you can tend to get a little bit off track. They come back and repeat the program, or because there's something else that they want to do and they feel this would be of value to them.
I will be
Okay.
sending it out, and just a quick note on the time. It's from 10:30 to 11:45.
I'm sorry, you're right, 11:45. It's an hour 15 minutes. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Myra. I really can't stress enough how wonderful of an opportunity these foundational coaching programs are. It's such a wonderful way to kind of start the year, in this case, make some really powerful changes as a group, make some healthy changes as part of a community, get some really great one-on-one time with a health coach like Myra. If you're interested in it, I would totally recommend just taking the leap and signing up. All right. So as I mentioned, we're always doing these deep dive webinars. This is kind of our introductory webinar that we give several times throughout the year. We're also doing these deep dive webinars where we bring on an expert. So we have 2 coming up that are with kind of nutrition, how nutrients and herbs can improve your cognition. That's Tuesday, February 18th at 12 Eastern. And then following in March, the sugar in your diet, friend or foe for brain health. That's Wednesday, March 19th at noon Eastern time. We also do workshops a week after each of those. So we talk about the topic, and then a week after each of those webinars, you'll have the opportunity to sign up for a workshop where we digest the material from that webinar together, talk about it, and try and put some goals in place. Myra, do you have something to share?
Well, I just had a question, Joan. Who's presenting these webinars?
The first one about nutrients and herbs is presented by Dr. Richard Carlton, who is a psychiatrist. And the sugar in your diet is presented by Dr. Penelope McDonald, who is a no, now I forget, a holistic doctor.
Okay, integrative medical doctor.
Thank
Yeah.
you, a functional
Okay.
medical doctor.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, so these are our expert webinars, and they're free.
Yeah.
So really a lot of value here as well.
Other next steps, you can visit sharpagain.org. You can sign up for our email list, join or refer someone to our program. So if that foundational coaching program doesn't sound right for you, but it does sound right for somebody you love, just maybe send them a link to the page that Joan sends, or get them in contact with us. Anybody with any questions can email us at info@sharpagain.org. And as always, the only reason we can do any of this, including these free webinars and the coaching program at a greatly reduced rate, is the donations of our wonderful donors who believe in the mission to make all of this as accessible to everyone as possible. So if you have the ability to help with that, you can donate at sharpagain.org/donate. There's the QR code to sign up for our email list. I already noticed there's a couple questions in the chat, so I will start to answer those and give anybody a chance to scan that QR code for our emails. James said, I'm in bed 10 hours a night. Is that negative? but sometimes slow going to sleep. It's often interrupted 4 or 5 times for bathroom breaks. This is a great point. I'm glad you brought it up. It's something I normally talk about, and I guess I just missed today. So when we talk about that 7 to 9 hours of sleep, we are talking about time asleep, which is different from time in bed. So however long it takes you for that time in bed to get that 7 to 9 hours of sleep is okay. I think that 10 hours with what you're describing is probably about right. I know for me to get about that 7 hours of sleep, it takes, when I've been wearing like a sleep tracker, it takes me about 8 hours and 20 minutes. So if you're 10 hours, it sounds like you might be waking up a little more than me. That might be a little slow falling asleep. That might be an hour and a half, 2 hours of time in bed that you're not sleeping. So I think that makes sense. The one thing you do want to be careful of is spending so much time in bed that your brain starts to associate sleep or not associate your bed with sleep. We kind of want your brain to go, oh, I'm in bed, I'm going to start calming down. This is a place where we sleep, rather than maybe like watching TV in bed for 5 or 6 hours. Oh, and then Anne also said, how is the website Lumosity for your brain? Yeah, it's one of the brain training kind of websites. So the Lumosity, Brain HQ, these are really similar things. There's good research on some of the activities on those websites that it helps with preventing cognitive decline. I wouldn't say these are the end all be all. I think the real way to think about it that I have found with clients over the years and people who participate in our foundational coaching program is, do you enjoy it or do you not? If you enjoy it and it feels like kind of a fun thing to do, then great, keep doing it. It's helpful, but there's a pretty significant percentage of people that show up to those activities and sort of feel like they're grinding away and they don't really like it and it's a chore. And if that's the case, then I would maybe find a different way of stretching your brain that you're enjoying, that you get kind of joy out of. So that's sort of how we've.
Yeah, and actually, I read recently that reading fiction is, if you want something a little bit passive, reading fiction is a great way to keep your brain active, because when you read fiction, you have to keep track of different characters and different plot lines. So reading fiction is a very good thing to do. And also, I think that Brain HQ actually has been recommended over Luminosity. So if you're looking at brain games online, you might want to look at Brain HQ. There was some concern that with Luminosity, the way their games are created, it was too easy to learn them. And so you weren't actually getting a brain stretching benefit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's kind of what the research says in general, is that the brain training, you're kind of learning that particular task versus, pushing your brain beyond it. But there is also research for things, I think, on Brain HQ, the 2 tasks, if you have an account, are Double Decision and Hawkeye are the ones that have shown the greatest research. Any other questions? No? Well, with an eye on the time, since we're
That's
1
it for
past the hour.
questions.
What was that, John? That's it?
I
Yeah.
think that's it for the questions.
Perfect. Well, thank you
Yeah, great.
everybody so much for joining us. Happy New Year. And we really appreciate you taking the time to focus on your brain health. And we hope to see you maybe in that coaching program, maybe at one of those future webinars, and just a part of the Sharping community. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you, Steve and Myra. This was wonderful. I'm going to stop our recording.
Okay. Oh.